It's the Stranger Nerds here. We have Season 3, Chapter 4, the Sauna Test. We have myself, Connor Vandemark, with wonderful Tommy Grant and Mitchell Lee for this episode. Jersey Nerds Productions. And this was... I missed last episode because things have to get in the way. And
Boo.
I am kind of sad I missed that one because both these episodes, humdingers. Holy... I can see why you guys like this season a lot.
Well, with that, I mean, give us your reaction to the last episode since you weren't on the podcast for that. So, what did you think of that one?
Okay, first off, the name of it, the case of the missing lifeguard, which definitely leaned into the Nancy Drew thing, which I thought was very funny.
Yep.
I'll do some quick hits on this. I love Max and Eleven becoming more of a buddy kind of pair. I'm glad to see that's actually happening. And then I remember it was this episode or the last episode where it was this most past episode where L comments about that, which we'll talk about later. Then them trying to find out the missing girl, and then we go see you can easily seeing Billy in a polo shirt. I'm like, yeah, something's wrong. Like that he would never wear something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like a tucked in polo shirt and jeans. I'm like, that's not right. I love Robin even more. She's amazing. Erica, funny as shit. Great. Like, I'm glad she's getting more actually. Like, I think she's a great addition to the group. Steven Dustin being Steven Dustin. Yep. Wonderful. Keep it going.
Yep.
The spot with the duffel bag guy going to doing the yoga thing. The dance class.
I figured funny. You'd appreciate that scene.
Funny as shit. Dustin's like, what? And Steve's like, all right. But them figuring out Robin figured out the code. She is cool as shit. And even Dustin's like, yo, Robin, let's go. And just like Steve's like, nah. No, but those two, I would ship them.
So now to carry off of that, I gotta ask, what was your reaction when Robin figured out the code? Because I wanted to know, because that's why I kept asking you every episode. Because I was like, it's such a simple answer when you get it.
Once she saw the carrier, is like, oh, the cat. I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, that was something that picked up. And then she went to the middle of the mall, and when she was looking for the Chinese place, like, oh, okay. Like, I see where once she was looking for the Chinese place, like I see where this is going. And then when she went to the clock, I'm like, which they showed that clock earlier in one of the earlier episodes, like, that makes sense. So I was like, oh, in the West.
That's what I was saying. Like they hint at it, and it's like it's such an in your face thing, but you would never guess it. And that's why I kept asking you. And your response to they're digging to China, I was like, oh, he's gonna be so upset when he finds out what's actually happening.
No, I'm not upset with that. Like
China.
No, I'm as in like I was saying that. Oh, they're infiltrating America from the other side of the world. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yeah.
Then Hopper and Joyce. Hopper is pissed the fuck off, and dude needs to pump his brakes. I'm loving Joyce more and more because she's actually like becoming more of a detective too. She's like figuring shit out. I feel bad for Will because the fact that he's being kind of left behind, and like I thought that I liked the scene with Will breaking down at Castle Byers. To me, I thought that was
thank you. I needed you here. I needed you here for last episode. I was standing on a lonely island with that one.
I like that because of the fact that it actually show like usually speaking, we see like I won't say he's putting on a strong face, but like he's trying to let people know that he's not being bothered. But like having all his friends, he's feeling isolated, and with that, he had that same kind of like Dustin had that fear too when he was coming back of him being isolated, and everybody's kind of going different paths. And he still wants to be with his friends, but his friends have the priorities. And I thought it was very, I did like that kind of story arc with him. And then but once he realized like, oh, he's back, Like I this is now a reoccurring thing, and shit's going down. I was nice to see him actually get his shit together. I'm like, all right, fuck this shit. I gotta go do my thing. I have to. We have to take care of this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and good old Nancy Drew. The freaking fertilizer. That was so fucking weird.
And what did you think of the ending? What did you think of the ending with Mrs. Driscoll?
I like her. I like the part with her reaching out to, like, I like she was reaching out to the ironworks. I thought it was very fun, interesting seeing that with she needed to go back to the hive. I mean, like the hive mind group people.
Yep.
Um, I did not expect her. I did not expect her to become affected. So my theory on that will
Yeah,
be is that the
that was
actual
kind of
rat
an
itself infected
interesting.
her. I think the
That would
rat
be
infected
my
her.
theory as well, because I I actually don't know if they ever explain how she got infected. Now that I'm thinking about it, Mitchell, I don't know if you can
No,
confirm this or not, but I don't think they ever explain how Mrs. Driscoll got infected. The rats would have to be my guess as well at this point.
Off
well,
the
the one
top of
rat.
my head, I don't have a distinct
Yeah,
answer for you.
I don't remember them explaining
Sorry.
it, but that's okay. But with that,
Well, like
do we want to
I do
dive
feel
into
bad for
this
Nancy.
episode?
I do feel bad Nancy though, because like she was like very much like sexism very prevalent for her, and no,
Oh yeah,
her getting shut
yeah.
down,
She
that
she definitely
sucks.
gets put through the ringer this season, and
I'm definitely getting this one like
it's just her trying to find her place in the world.
yeah. The rating for this one though, for the last episode, honestly, like
Mm-hmm.
9.1, like just as good. I thought the previous episode was better, but like I thought it was still very good episode. Um, but and now
You
we get
you were just
to
blowing Mitchell away over there. Mitchell can't even sit in the seat.
I'm loving this season.
And I can't blame you because it is a fantastic season, but I just don't really think we're at like that part where we're losing our minds just yet. So I am
It might have helped that I
I'm
watched some.
ecstatic to see just how high the grades will go when we get where we're going.
I mean, shit. Season 4, we're probably not going to drop below a 9.8. That was a
It probably
fucking
helped.
like packed
It
season.
probably helped that I watched both episodes back to back.
Yeah, watching two in a
To
row
be fair,
definitely helps.
for the listeners, I just watched both episodes literally right before this episode, before us recording this. So I am fresh, and I was trying like to combine episodes. I was going through that. So yeah, but overall, I thought very fun, and I there's a lot of little things, and I'm enjoying the little things. And if they keep doing that, I will be a happy man. So let's
That's what we
dive
like to
in.
hear. All right. So we kind of start this episode off kind of quickly continuing from the end of last episode. So there's not much carryover here. We have 11 and Max kind of talking about Heather, and 11 is showing worry about, Heather and her family. Just something's not sitting right with her. And Max keeps trying to, I don't know if Max is in denial or she's just still so new to all this that she's just kind of oblivious to what's really going on.
Denial to me.
And then we have Mrs. Driscoll. Yeah, that's what I think. But and we see Mrs. Driscoll being basically restrained by the police and paramedics, being taken away to the hospital. And like you said, you get that scene where they're driving by the steel mill and she's has her arm reached out, screaming, "I have to go back! I have to go back!" And we definitely get a more intense version of the hive mind where they're physically being drawn to this location now, whereas before it was kind of they're just connected. But now it's like you have human bodies basically being dragged back to this steel mill. And we have a creepy scene with Mr. and Mrs. Holloway waking up in the basement, where we have Heather kind of giving the same spiel to them that Billy gave to her in the last episode, where basically telling them calm down, stay still, this will all be over soon, that kind of thing.
Oh, and the
And we
dad
see
being
the mind flip.
Saying the dad being the head of the newspaper too. I was like,
The paper.
oh, that's gonna be a fun little thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yep. It's all, the plot is slowly all coming together. Shit's slowly happening. But were you expecting to see the form of the mind flayer kind of come into screen? Because I know up until this point we had an idea that the mind flayer was here, but not confirmed. But now we actually see this new goop monster taking the form of the mind flayer.
I kind of assumed that.
So were you surprised to see that?
No, I was not. I kind of assumed that it was going to be the four, because like you can kind of see the outline, kind of see the step of it. I was like, it kind of looked very similar to what we've seen from the Will's drawings. So like, yeah, I was not shocked. I was like, okay, it just kind of confirmed my suspicions.
Yeah. So that's pretty much the whole starting of the episode, where we have Mr. and Mrs. Holloway being consumed by the mind flayer. And then we quickly shift over to Hopper and Joyce, where we have Hopper waking up to Joyce taking care of him after his big smackdown from the last episode.
Oh, he has ass kicked. That's right.
Basically destroys. Yeah, Grigori destroys Hopper. Granted, Grigori got him by surprise. If it was more of a one-on-one match, Hopper might have stood a slightly higher chance, but
obviously no.
Yeah, Hopper took a beating, and you see the bruises on his back because Grigori just laid into his spine and just kept wailing on him. And you can definitely tell Hopper is slightly concussed because he's throwing up when he wakes up, and that's definitely a sign of concussion, from my experience at least.
Oh,
and they kind of have a quick conversation. Yeah.
Something I'm just going to mention. I'll mention at the very end, but I think I know what the thing is, because I think they did tease in episode 3 the name of the monster.
Okay.
We'll get to it later on in the episode.
Oh, the name of the monster.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about it later on in the episode. But it's kind of, I'm looking through it because I was just googling real quick, and I'm like, what was that name again? Because it just re-popped my mind, like, because I didn't write it down earlier.
Gotcha.
Continue though.
So Hopper and Joyce kind of have a quick conversation about who the hell it was that they just ran into at the lab, and why was this person there? You know, was it state government? You know, was it some random person? And Hopper finds out that Joyce managed to take down a partial license plate, which I thought was a pretty funny scene, where Joyce just has this little scribbled license plate down, and she's just like, well, this letter could be this, or this number could be that. I'm really not quite sure. It's basically a partial plate, which nowadays is nearly impossible to run. So I can't even imagine what it would have been like back then.
Yeah.
With the partial plate, because there's so many different variants of, you know, letters and numbers that could look alike, and if you get one wrong, you're not getting it. And then she mentions the fact that it wasn't a car, it was a motorcycle, and Hopper quickly, just a light bulb goes off in his head and realizes, like, this was the same motherfucker that I just bumped into the other day at the mayor's office. So now he's realizing the mayor's involved in this. And Hopper and Joyce take a little trip.
It was more like a cascade. It was more like a cascade of, like, no, because I was like, it's like, yeah, I don't know what kind of car it, like, I can't figure what car it is. And Joyce is like, it wasn't a car. And that's when he, like, slide over, like, what? Because, like, let's be real, like, none other, like, a government vehicle is not going to be not a car.
Yeah.
And like, that was like the first thing. It was like, yeah, it was a bike. And he's like, that fucker. Like, I love, like, this slow, like, realization, but, like, oh, okay. And then in Hopper with the mayor. Oh man, that was something.
That I think that was a little bit of Hopper kind of getting a little bit of vengeance for his SmackDown the night before, and just saying like, I need to get a little bit of my ego back here and really lay it thick on this guy.
I got my ass beat, so someone else needs their ass beat as a result.
And that's what I think was in Hopper's head, because the mayor was an easy target. The mayor's a douchebag to begin with, so it was easy for him just to quick, you know what, we're gonna take this to the next level and get a little physical in this little office here. And the second he locks the door, you know exactly what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah.
But I love the tactic of the cigar cutter, though.
Oh yeah, that was definitely premeditated. Overall, but the cigar cutter with the finger was like, yeah, that no, he definitely pressed the right buttons to get the information he needed.
So we find out
from this. Hold on. Also, Joyce being an accomplice of like unplugging the phone, like, fuck you, no.
Oh no! That was the best line. One of the, like, Joyce had a lot of great lines in this episode, but I think this line of, she literally looks at the secretary and goes, "Who are you calling? The police?"
Police, yeah.
like oh, that was just such a great line. I'm like, Joyce is really coming into her own character this season. I'm loving it. I mean,
still like my favorite character so far on the show. Like, yeah, hands down.
She definitely is pulling her weight. I mean, the fact that in this situation she even thought to get the license plate of the bike driving away instead of checking on Hopper right away. Like, she's involved. Like, she knows, like, there's shit that needs to get done before checking on people at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So she's thinking more, which is good.
She's always been, okay. Don't give her that. She's always been thinking. Isn't like she has?
Well, I mean, like, no, but I'm saying, like, thinking proactively. Like,
this has never left her mind.
No, it's
she's never had a moment of peace.
No, but it's like, see, this no, because I really like Joyce's character, and I don't think she gets enough credit because of the fact that every situation she's been in.
But I'm saying she's thinking more. Like, the first 2 seasons, she's been so fixated on Will because the issue is always surrounded by Will. So she's always kind of a tunnel visioned thinking on Will and all the factors that are hitting on Will. But now she's kind of in a situation where Will's not in trouble anymore. She's kind of her own person trying to help Hopper, solve a crime. And she's actually thinking outside the box and doing things Hopper would do as a cop. So she's actually, like, being a really intelligent investigator at this point.
I disagree with that. I completely disagree with that because of the fact that we've seen it already in season 1 where, okay, we didn't even know the Upside Down fucking existed at first. She was the one where she put the lights up for Will to communicate, which was ingenious.
But this is what I'm saying. But it was because she was trying to find Will. She was purely focused on trying to find Will.
That's still
she's still a good investigator. I'm not trying to.
I don't really understand the crux of this argument.
I'm not trying to say she's a stupid person. Like, I'm saying this is she's growing more. She's becoming more like Hopper in using investigative skills.
I'm saying that
there was no.
So
I think I get the argument here. You're saying that she's always been like that, whereas Tommy's like, she's grown. And I think I'm going to have to agree with Connor on this one.
Fuck you.
I think she's always been that way.
She's a lot less sweaty and stressed than she was in season 1.
Yes, that I would agree with. That. She's much more presence of mind.
She has to do a lot less of it on her own than in season 1. But I think I'm with Connor on this one.
But that's also part of the factor too, is she has a clear head at this point. She's not under that stress of worrying about her son. She's becoming a little bit more and has the ability to grow and use her skills without being stressed out about Will 24/7. I mean, she's really been. I mean, for fuck's sake, Will rode his bike home alone in the rain. Will in season 1 and 2 would not have had the opportunity to even leave that house without Joyce being on top of him. Joyce is on her own little adventure.
I think the biggest difference is that it's easier for Joyce to convince people now than it was in season 1, because once is just an incident, 2 is the pattern. two's a coincidence and three's a pattern. So the second time, when people are like, "Oh, maybe she's having PTSD," she was still concerned, and guess what? She was right that something was wrong with Will. And the fact that now Hopper is still pissed at her about her proving her wrong about the magnets, because that was the whole thing that this started, because Hopper was not giving her the time of day on the magnets, because he was like, it's over, you're grieving, and then when Hopper was like, he was still trying to convince her, like, everything's fine here, and then they started hearing noises, and then the ball's rolling. He's like, then Hopper's like, shit, she might be right. Like, she's always been, so far in all 3 seasons, she's always been proactive in whatever storyline, whatever focus she's on. She's been going hard nose at it, and I completely respect that. And again, I know she's my favorite character, but I love how the writers really, every time, it's a different creative way that she figures out, and she's not afraid to ask someone for help either.
Yeah.
Like, every single season, she's like, okay, reach out to different people. Love her to death.
Because she understands the importance of, because she understands the importance of utilizing other people's skill sets to actually help her do what she has to do. And we even like see her, help with the map situations. Like, we find out from the mayor that the Russians basically own the mall and are looking to expand the mall and have been trying to purchase more land to basically expand. And when they go to the mayor's house and are looking at the land deeds, Joyce is the one that puts together, like, all these different properties are basically around the lab and the mall. So they kind of come up with the idea of like, oh, let's go check out these properties to see if they're there. And her and Hopper go out and investigate, and we see them just going property to property, just checking to see if anybody is even there, which we find out nobody is. They're all basically abandoned. But yeah, Joyce is just really coming into her own this season, more so than the previous season, in my opinion. But either or, she's still phenomenal.
I'll tell you what.
What?
And it's a shame that Nick is not here to join us for this, because this season begins the arc of Nancy that I really enjoy. I think that Nancy in the first 2 seasons really struggled to find her footing, and I think in season 3 we start to get more of reporter Nancy, and I think that that's a lot more interesting than dumb teenager Nancy.
And I definitely agree with you on that, and I really liked Nancy in this episode because we have a few interactions that we don't usually get with Nancy. And I think the most important one, obviously we start off with her interacting with Mr. Holloway, and she thinks he's an alcoholic or a druggie because he's looking really rough. And he's got and obviously, surprise, surprise, Mr. Holloway's still alive. And he's got the big bruise from the bottle from the night before. But they get fired, and kind of gets a wake-up call of, like, Mr. Holloway tells her, like, how you didn't check the facts. This is real life now. You're adults. Things have, consequences to your actions, all these different things, and basically talks down to them the entire time. And eventually fires them. And they're on the way home, and Jonathan and Nancy have an interesting conversation where Jonathan, rightfully so, is pissed off at the fact that he was concerned about his job the whole time. Nancy basically pushed him along into it because obviously she wants to pursue the story. And they have a conversation about money because Jonathan needs this money basically to go to college and survive. Whereas Jonathan makes the point to Nancy of like, you have a dad who makes 6 figures. You live in a 2-story house. Like, money isn't an issue for you. And Nancy kind of fights back a little bit too, because she's kind of trying to become her own person and not be reliant on her parents. And she just wants to be her own person and do her own thing. And I thought it was a really good conversation that her and Jonathan have. And this was definitely the first of a little bit of a, the lover's quarrel, if you will, from Murray. But we definitely see the differences between Jonathan and Nancy come more into light in this episode.
A lot of times whenever you have like a younger couple like this and they need to have an argument, it feels very manufactured, and it feels like there's not really stakes, or there's someone that's overreacting to something. Someone's clearly in the wrong. This is like a real world like argument that plenty of couples of that age have had. And I think that it was very well done, and I think that both of them brought up really good points. So that I liked seeing it. It wasn't you're supposed to take the side of this person versus this person type of argument.
Yeah.
And to highlight that even more is that, at least in my vantage point, they're both right. Like, no, in a way, no, there's things that Nancy's going through that, no, just John isn't dealing with it because Nancy's dealing with the sexism. No, John isn't under flack because of that. So he doesn't feel the animosity that Nancy receives. At the same time, Nancy doesn't realize the pressure that Jonathan's underneath because he's underneath his own rock that based on his financial status. And it's real. Like, if it's true that Nancy's dad's making six figures and where they're living, plus in the 80s.
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially in that time period too, with inflation.
That's real well off.
Yeah.
And like, it's a situation where they're both right at the same time. No, they don't really have the emotional maturity yet that they can kind of put themselves someone else's shoes in a way.
Yeah.
And no, and in a way, Nancy admits that later on when Nancy's having to talk with her mother. And I thought that was also a really good scene.
It was, because this is the first interaction her and her mother have actually had a conversation with since season 1, where they had the whole fight about her sleeping out with Steve.
Mm-hmm. And I thought that it actually showed vulnerability for Mrs. Wheeler, and kind of like, because you can see her, because we've seen it multiple times already. Yeah, like definitely more in this season, but like the internal conflict she's been going through, especially dealing with the husband she has, and it's
so easy
fair
to make fun of him.
I know, but like at the same time, like, no, how close was she to cheat on him and go off to see Billy? Like, it wasn't until that point she saw him and her daughter laying on him that was like, okay, yeah, maybe this is the right idea. But like, certain things build up to that. No, it's not the right choice to make, but it's still a choice that she consciously was thinking about.
It is nice to see her have this dialogue versus, the stuff that... Did she really even have lines in season 1?
She has
Mrs.
some.
Wheeler or Nancy?
Mrs. Wheeler. I don't remember her having much.
The only dialogue she has was when the conversation when Nancy comes home late at night after staying out at Steve's, and then the conversation after Nancy gets interrogated by the police and lies to them. And they have that whole basically fight again about, don't lie to me. I know you were sleeping with Steve, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's really the extent to it.
There's and also, don't forget, not with the kids, but the other interaction lunch she had too was when the quote unquote cop showed up, or the government showed up, and then they were dealing with them as well.
And actually, and we do get a short scene with her with Joyce at one point when she brings her the casserole, but
that's true too.
But in terms of Mrs. Wheeler and Nancy, there's very few dialogue moments between the two.
I enjoyed having that moment with her and Nancy, because most of the last few episodes with her have just been like, I'm horny. I want to fuck something. And that's basically been the extent of Mrs. Wheeler's character for about the last season.
I don't want to say it's that. I mean, yes, that definitely is a factor.
Attention, yes.
I think it's more of she wants excitement. And it's kind of that, that kind of trope of, you're middle-aged, you're set in your ways. Obviously, Mr. Wheeler is very comfortable with doing absolutely nothing all the time. And Mrs. Wheeler's just kind of, both the kids are grown up and out of the house. She wants something to keep her entertained other than just sitting at home all day. And she sees Nancy kind of in that vote of, like, she's being repressed by, these obviously asshole sexist men at work. And she doesn't want her daughter feeling that you can just give up and just live the life I'm living. Like, she kind of pushes Nancy, like, stick it to him, go out there and keep fighting. Like, don't settle and become what I am.
Because I wouldn't even say that either. Like, because the fact that I think Billy to her is, I guess the best way I would put it at this moment is like a crisis of fate, a fate that is, because the fact that it was something different, something that was so out of the blue for her that it did spark that the drive that she was, like, even like Tommy mentioned, the drive that she was kind of missing. And now we're seeing this conversation, and after the fact, when she's like, she kind of settled herself down a little more, but you can kind of see where, in a way, Mrs. Wheeler kind of lives through Nancy in a way where she wants Nancy to succeed because of the fact that she doesn't want to put Nancy in a position she is in.
Yeah.
And and Nancy kind of recognizes that too, where they had the joking thing, like, oh, like, no, the mom's like, yeah, you're a fighter. And then Nancy jokes like, oh yeah, I get it from dad. And they both know, like, oh, you're fucking lying. Like, great line. But like, no, but Nancy's like, yeah, I get it from you. And Nancy sees that too. Like, no, when things goes wrong, no, Mrs. Wheeler just, no, I guess when, for them growing up, Nancy has looked up to her mom, not her dad. And in a way, and no, Mrs. Wheeler mentioned, like, I'm proud of you. And there's no reason why she shouldn't be, because the fact that she wants her to be a better version of herself.
Yeah. And we see Nancy do that, where she kind of ditches Jonathan at this point and goes solo. And we see her go out to the hospital and
hold on. I want to mention before you that.
Yes.
She also, I think there's some actual self-realization here of Nancy where she actually admits, I wasn't thinking of Jonathan. I was just thinking of what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very important for her because, honestly, in these first 2 seasons, like, she kind of just does, in a way, what she wants and just kind of brings anyone else along that is willing to do things with her, but doesn't really think about anyone else. Like, we've seen already we've seen it with Barb in the beginning, where Barbie didn't want to go, and it made her uncomfortable. We've seen it already with Steve, and the whole, she wouldn't talk to Steve at all.
Yep.
And he's been getting dragged around, and then we just saw it now with Jonathan. So the fact that she's actually having some self-actualization of, hey, maybe I was being selfish. I was being selfish here, and I was not seeing things through Jonathan's mind, and I do feel bad about that. So I'm hoping to see her grow even more from that. Because if she does, I'll be more on Nancy's boat. Because first 2 seasons, mostly it was not. Like, Murray did help a bit for her, but like, and find her own kind of like path. But yeah, it's definitely a. We'll see. We'll see how she develops.
Yeah, we definitely will.
So took her to the hospital. Yes.
Yeah. So she gets to the hospital to go see Mrs. Driscoll and follow up some more on that story, and we see her basically lying some more to the hospital staff, claiming to be the granddaughter of Mrs. Driscoll.
Hey, good for her.
You got to find a way in, and she did that.
It's
And
unconvincing as hell, though.
oh,
You gotta go in with more
I
confidence
think the
than that.
nursing staff just didn't give a shit. She's just like, I
Yeah.
really don't feel like arguing. Just go ahead.
No.
You seem like a nice kid.
Because like if there's a 10% chance that this is true, fuck it, go back there.
But it's gonna look bad on Nancy though, because she goes into the room and we just start to see the heart rate for Mrs. Driscoll just go skyrocketing, and all of a sudden she just starts screaming uncontrollably. And obviously, watching the episode, you know that ties into the big Billy fight scene that we'll definitely be discussing later on. But it looks really bad that Mrs. Driscoll is fine, and as soon as Nancy goes in, all of a sudden this woman is just going absolutely psychotic. And that's kind of the end of Nancy's little story arc in this episode. But what did you think of the connection with Driscoll? Because that was a little bit of a freaky scene to watch. I'm sure Nancy was probably shitting her pants at that point.
Oh yeah, she was, and like you could see trying to get a nurse or something, like pressing the A station button.
Yeah.
But like I was not shocked that was happening.
Yeah.
Because we'll get into it a little bit, but like we've already seen before when the mind flayer was burned on the tunnels, Will had the same reaction.
Yep.
And hell, Will had the same reaction too when he was underneath the freaking heat.
Yeah, that is true. But let's move on from the emotional conversations of this episode and move on to the fun stuff, where we have Dustin, Steve, and Robin, the favorite trio of the show. Still my favorite. And we get basically Dustin spying on the Russians still. Steve is helping him out with it. And they're just trying to figure out how they're going to go into this room. And Steve's like, oh, I'll just sneak up and knock him out. And I just love the comeback from Dustin where he's like, have you ever even won a fight? and like, you can tell like Dustin's like slightly being serious, but also being an asshole at the same time, because like, it's a genuine question, but like, he's like, you're 0 for 2. He's like, and Steven's like, the last one doesn't count. And Dustin, of course, says, no. There was Jonathan the year before.
Yep.
It's like, you're 0 for 2, buddy.
Yeah, Steve is like Chris Pine in the new Star Trek movies, where it's like, dude, you just get your ass kicked every single time you try anything.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, like, the fact that Dustin knows about him losing against Jonathan too is also funny.
Oh, absolutely. It's just great because he just puts him in his place. He's like, you just can't get your ass kicked. Like, this is not what we're going to be doing. But I just every time they have a conversation, I just laugh. It's just pure gold every time.
And then Dustin is like, yeah, no, I can get in there because I have no bones or whatever the hell he says.
I have no clavicles.
Yeah. Sure, buddy.
And then Steve, of course, tries to explain the whole disease thing to Robin. He's like, he's missing bones. It's fine. He just starts pushing on Dustin.
He can fit in there. It doesn't push my ass. Those two are just such clowns. I love it so much.
It's great.
I'm telling you, once Steve Harrington kind of accepts his role as like the babysitter, him as a character just skyrockets because him and Dustin have such great chemistry. Maya Hawke.
I see why you liked Steve so much compared to season 1, because like I see like just wait on him. He's a good character. I'm like, all right, he definitely has gotten better, but definitely season 3 is like, all right, cool. And like again, like I'm shipping Robin and him right now, and so is Dustin for God's sake. So like, I'm like, come on, like those like overall, Steve I feel like has found himself a lot more.
Yes, and
I'm glad to see that I'm very happy to say like no, like I can kind of like in a way like no, sometimes as you get older going through different situations you start really accepting like, oh, who the hell gives a shit, like I'm just going to do what I want to do. And you can see him kind of shed that off already slowly but steadily
with the help of Dustin kind of kicking him in the ass a little bit to say this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
But we see a little bit more of Robin being resourceful, where she just takes off, comes back like 10 minutes later with the blueprints for the mall. So like I don't even know where she got them, but it's like,
hold on, you just get the funny scene too of Dustin licking the ice cream, and then the ice cream scooper, and then they even wash it off. He just freaking Steve takes it and does a little spin and it's in the holster. I'm like, the fuck is wrong with you two?
But it was just the way he delivered the line too. It's just great. It's like, come on, man, not the ice cream, not my scooper, and just this little trick and puts it back in his pocket.
Not the scoops.
It's hard to get every line, because every line that him and Dustin just have it's just worth noting, because it's always funny. But we covered the Dustin trying to get Steve to shove him through the air duct, which obviously did not work. And Robin has another little brain blast moment of, because we hear Erica in the background ringing the bell for more ice cream, just being perfect Erica. And so now we have a little proposal scene with Dustin, Steve, and Robin trying to convince this young girl, hey, we need you to squeeze through these air ducts all the way through the mall to go into the secret room and let us know what's inside it. Like, no one in their right mind would say yes to that, but not Erica. Erica plays that to her advantage and basically gives them a little explanation about capitalism and says, hey, you need this, I need free ice cream for life, baby. And she'll get it. And I love this with Dustin trying to, play the Russian card of, this is for America. And she just comes back with the line of like, you can't spell America without Erica. And Dustin's just reaction to that is like, yeah, you're right.
Technically the truth.
It's great. So then he's just like, all right, well, do it for America, Erica. And she just kind of was like, ooh, I like the sound of that. And so then we quickly shift over to Operation Child Endangerment, as Erica puts it. And it's that night.
Pause here. I want to pause as I am enjoying how Erica's now really getting more involved in the group.
Yes.
And the fact that she has, like, I think it's with her dealing with Lucas, where she has no shits. It's like, I don't care to who the hell you are. Like, I am gonna weasel my way into whatever I need. Like, in the future, like, I'm just saying as in like as a joke, but like, she'd be real good at like a war profiteer. Just like, I don't give a shit. Give me what I want. Let's go. Like,
well, if we ever flash forward far enough, we can see what Erica goes into business with.
Erica working for Lockheed Martin.
Oh,
that would be fantastic.
Oh my god. Yeah, Erica, and then those ducks too were shiny clean. I was like, thank God that mall was brand new.
I mean, it did open, I think, just a few months earlier. I mean, I think I could be wrong, but I think the season opened up with the opening of the mall.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
Yep. So
the new character, as Mitchell put it.
Yeah,
you are correct, sir, and it's a very interesting character, and it'll get more interesting as we get further along.
Trust me,
like spoiler alert, but
I mean, just really. In a few scenes, I mean, we get Erica manages to get in, opens up the door and lets them in, and we see them opening up the boxes from Imperial Panda. So Connor, I gotta ask, as a science person, what is supposed to be this green liquid that's inside these little canisters?
I see in your notes that possibly nuclear. No,
I didn't. I just didn't know what the hell it could possibly be.
Slime.
I mean, it could be Nickelodeon slime. This could be the origin story for Nickelodeon slime cannons.
So, for what I honestly, it was nothing that I recognize.
I mean, is it just like a Hollywood show of just like, ooh, chemicals?
Kind of, but to me that looked kind of more like upside downy in a way.
Okay.
Because we know the Russians were like dealing with that kind of crap. Like, who knows? They found something and bottled it up, and like they found another use.
Maybe they weaponized the upside down.
Like the one thing that it definitely reminded me of was shit. What was that from again?
Get reminded you shit.
There was these. Have you ever seen I think it's out in Europe. There's these different types of like electric scooters, and they have fuel cells.
No, can't say I've heard of that.
I'm googling it right now. I will send it to you one of these days. But I think it's like out in like India or one of the like South Pacific Island kind of nations. And they have these things where it's like kind of that sense situation, like you kind of pop it in and it just charges and you use exchange amount. That's what it looked like to me. Like to me, my first thought was like maybe a fuel cell, something like this, to power whatever crazy things going on. And and the other part too is like, no, obviously we know this is an elevator going down to wonderful secret lab of the Russians. So, like to me, like I can definitely see. That's my guess right now is fuel cells. That's all I can think of.
Okay.
But like I was kind of expecting that to happen though. Them going down.
And... You mean the elevator of terror?
Mm-hmm. I got once they went to that room, like, yep, they're gone. Like I knew it immediately. And honestly, I think that I might be a little early, but it could be a situation where Joyce and Hopper might be able to meet with that trio. That's my guess. Because, as we know, was it Starcorp?
Starcourt Mall.
Starcourt.
I think yeah.
And that makes sense. So, just have to know they've been buying property. Because Joyce make the good comment of like, hey, they're all buying property by this lake. And the power plant's also right here. So you need power to drive all those things. Like, and this all this started 4 days ago. So the fact that, like, because we assume that the elevator goes down.
But it's going down. I mean, it's going down deep with how quickly they were going down.
But at the same time, like, you can't just assume there's only one entrance. Like the elevator is only for supply maintenance. There's a way for people to go in and out of it. And I think that's where Joyce and Hopper ends up.
Okay.
So
you think we're gonna have a reuniting party underneath Starcourt Mall?
Yep.
Okay. Good prediction. Anything else for the trios part of this story, Mitchell, Connor? Before we move on to the party.
The other thing popped in my head was like I was thinking very much Solid Snake of like they have to hide in boxes. It's like where are they going to hide in this? Like the first thing I thought was like when they went in, it's like where are they going to hide? Like there isn't much. I was like kind of looking the scene. Like is there anything where they can like kind of sneak into? Because I feel like something's going to happen.
Nope. They're sitting ducks at this point.
Yep.
So all it is boxes.
Yeah.
And they aren't big enough boxes to hide in, and whatever's in those boxes, they're going to eventually be opened by whoever's going to be down wherever they're going. So yeah, I mean they're pretty much sitting ducks at this point. Unless they can climb up and pull that, spy move where they find a hatch and climb on top of the elevator and just hide up there, but
that ain't happening. All right, to the party.
All right. So we get Lucas radioing Max. This is a code red over and over and over, and Max obviously was trying to sleep, pissed off at Lucas, hangs up on the radio. So Mike alternatively calls and wakes them up and tells, don't hang up the phone. Like, the girls don't realize when they call code red, like, they're very, very serious about their code reds.
Yes.
Like, it's all hands on that situation.
No, you better take that shit seriously.
Absolutely. I mean, it's code red. You can't ignore the code red. It's like telling someone not to touch the red button. It's like it's got to happen.
Or else we're not recording.
Yeah, well, that's true. And they even mentioned they try to get in touch with Dustin, who, as we know at this point in time, was on top of the roof of the mall spying on the Russians. So he was just not even around to help out, even if he could. And we basically have a meeting of the minds talking to Will, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And Will finally tells everybody, hey, I've been sensing the mind flare for like the past 3 episodes now. I think he might be back. And that was the one thing that always drove me nuts. It's like, this is season 3 now. This is the 3rd time this shit's happening to you. Don't hold back. Don't say, oh, maybe it's just a little fluke. Like, this has happened multiple times, and now you're finally like, maybe I should tell someone that I'm feeling this again. Like, it bothers me so much. But he finally tells him, it's like, he mentions the mind flare, and he thinks that part of it's still here. And Connor and Nick, this is why I asked the two of you at the end of season 2 when they finally get the little piece of that out of Will, like, where do you think it went? Because that piece essentially is what is still here in Hawkins, somehow still alive. And I think that's essentially the dust monster that forms in that very first episode where we see the dust kind of moving around.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it's supposed to be, but the mind flayer is still at large, and they kind of put together like it needs a new host. Obviously, it's Billy. We all know it's Billy, but they don't know it's Billy. And 11 and Max kind of look at each other, and 11's got the look on like it's fucking Billy. And then we got to come up with a plan. How do we figure out? How do we test this little hypothesis of is Billy a host? And so we just get them all just like scouting out outside the pool with binoculars, watching Billy up in the stands, which was kind of funny, but it's just Billy looks miserable as always. The poor guy has literally covered himself in towels on the lifeguard stand. He just looks ridiculous. As a former lifeguard, like no one ever did that. You would just look stupid if you're just covered up in towels on a lifeguard stand.
Why not?
Oh, it's not the fashion look you go for, man. But he
especially him and all people.
Yeah. And even funny, it's like the whole how the host is afraid of heat. The fact that Billy's sitting there playing with his lighter, I thought was kind of funny. He's got a icy in one hand and a lighter in the other. So he's literally got fire and ice, and it kind of is like a little symbolic, cinematic, like Billy's still battling the mind flare at this point, I think, for control, but the mind flare is definitely winning at this point. But we get kind of a little scene of them. They come up with a plan of basically we're going to lock Billy into the sauna, crank up the heat, and they mention it goes up to 220 degrees, and they're like, oh, it goes all the way up to this. We'll definitely figure out by then. Like, I don't think the human body can survive heat that high. Am I wrong in thinking that? Like, isn't there a certain temperature?
I don't know.
Like, the human body is like, if you're at a certain point, it's like you can't.
I'm always bad at figuring out what that is, because there's always somebody that's like, oh, I lived this temperature or this long without food or something. I'm like, I thought that was not even close to possible, so don't ask me.
Yeah, so as a quick Google, most people enjoy their saunas at a temperature between 150 and 175. So cranking up another what, 50 degrees?
Yeah,
less than that is okay. That is pretty it's pretty significant.
I guess so, it's
slightly cooking.
Okay,
excuse the hell out of me.
I don't see the ideal of sitting in that kind of heat, but hey, people love it.
According to divinesaunas.com,
I'm afraid what kind of rabbit hole you're going to go down on this.
So it depends on humidity. So if you have 0 humidity in the sauna, you can go up to 200. But there is humidity in there, then it should be like 160 plus 40% humidity. That makes sense. So,
interesting.
So there's no humidity in the sauna, then I guess kind of okay. It's not terrible, but we don't know. Yeah. So because according to this is a quote on this site from Harvard Health Publishing, a sauna's dry heat, which can get as high to 185, has profound effects on the body. So, pretty much, if you want to do profound, that's I'm quoting that no less. So. So I guess it's not as far fetched, but who knows?
Okay. Well, thank you for the Google Foo / rabbit hole discussion on saunas. I appreciate it. I've learned something new today. So we kind of have them digging for supplies at this point of figuring out a way to lock him in. And we get a little moment between Lucas and Will where Lucas tries to apologize for Will for, ruining the campaign and kind of ditching him at that point. And we just see Will kind of just tell him, like, basically shut the fuck up at this point. He's like, there's more important things to worry about. We don't need to have this discussion now. And then we have Mike and 11 interacting, and it just goes the complete opposite way where Mike kind of half-asses apologizes, if you even want to call it an apology. And he's just like, oh, it was all Hopper's fault. Like, Hopper's just a cranky old man that doesn't like joy. I just love that line because it was very true for Hopper at that point. But 11 now being a independent teenage girl basically turns it around on Mike, who was not expecting that. And she's like, you would like that, wouldn't you? Because I'm a different species. I don't think logically. And Mike just puts it together. He's like, wait, were you spying on us? It just you can't do that. It's like, yes, I can. And it's just like that funny like realization. Like Mike's like, I'm no longer in control of her. Oh no.
No. The line was Mike going, that's against the rules. And it's like, I make my own rules. I was like, yes. You go, girl.
It was great. Like Mike just put in his place and just has that realization of like, I have no influence. Like she definitely is her own person at this point. Like I think Mike is a little afraid now because he realizes like his weight is gone. Like he's got nothing really connected with 11 anymore. 11 is just kind of doing her own thing, which I think she deserves at this point. But
I think the other thing
either
too
way,
was like,
we get
I think the other thing too was like 11 didn't realize, like it wasn't no fault to Mike, but like I didn't realize that she was missing out on other things, like hanging, like meeting other girls, because she didn't really have like her only interaction of other girls other than her was her weird side quest out to Chicago, like and even then, like they're all much older than her. So actually having someone
and
who
not the
is
best role models.
Yeah. So actually having someone who is a peer of her own age is a big significant thing for her, and like it's definitely opening her eyes up to much more things.
Yeah. But so we move on from the little apologies where they basically get called out and said, hey, like it's time to get moving. And we get a kind of a creepy but funny scene where you have Billy showering and he just hears the noises in the locker room. He goes so quick to rage mode where it's just like pool's closed, and then here's again, the pool's fucking closed. It's like he's going in for killing at this point. Like he just quickly shifts to violence so fast. And then you hear probably the most annoying voice you could possibly hear. And it's just Mike's voice over the radio. Billy. I'm like, they would choose Mike's voice because he has the most obnoxious voice to taunt you. We learned that in the very early part of this season where Hopper basically wanted to rip him to pieces. And Billy just instantly locks in. He's just like, I'm going in for the kill. And I don't know why he fell for it, though. Like, I don't know if this was the Mind Flayer's eyes in control or Billy's, but like, it was clearly a dummy. Like, the door was wide open, and he still went in and grabbed it by the throat and lifted it up. What was the point of that? I didn't get that. I'm like, did you not realize it's not a real person? Like, what's your goal here?
Anger.
I guess. Well, he could have just punched it. He could have kicked it, but no, he just chose to fucking throat choke and hold it up in the air. But we obviously realized it was a trap because they strapped the radio to it. And 11 has a great moment where she just pops up behind him and just fucking throws him against the wall, slams the door shut. And this is where we get a very interesting interaction too, where Max is the one that tells him to crank up the heat. And I thought that was an interesting choice because I thought it would have been either Will. I thought it would have been more fitting for Will to do it because Will had to experience his last season where he was the one who was possessed. I thought that would have been a cool thing to have Will have a moment of like, now I can kind of fight this thing on my own. But Max is the one that makes the call of crank up the heat. As much as we hate Noah Schnapp as an actor, I still enjoy Will as a character a tiny bit. I wish he had that moment where he could have just kind of stood up to this monster a little bit. He's dealt with this for 2 seasons now, and he's still just kind of just chilling there in the background, not doing anything. But
all
I guess so. But I mean, 11 takes the brunt of the beating in this fight to come. But Billy has an interesting moment where he's trying to sucker Max into the door. And for a hot second, I think we're meant to think that it is Billy kind of confessing a little bit, even though you can tell it's pretty fake. But there's a few lines where I'm like, I don't know if that's actually Billy or if it's just the Mind Flayer fucking with them, just with how it came out. But then Will has that moment where he senses and is like, it's in control, and Mike just fucking goes out. He's like, get away from the door. Like, Mike saved her life. Will is just sitting there whispering, it's back, it's back. Mike's the one that saves Max's life at this point because she would have probably gotten her fucking face ripped off with how he came out of that window. And he goes, again, instant rage, just calling her bitch, waving his arm at her with, I think he had like piece of the tile in his hand or glass.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was the tile, but either or.
I think it was the tile. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, he was going for the kill. But man, he fucking rages through that door, and the face-off between him and 11 was pretty fucking intense.
Hold. Before you miss that, you forget there, Lucas actually got to hit it with a wrist rocket.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Yes, I completely forgot.
You got to give him props. He had this for 3 seasons now, and he finally actually got to use it and was effective.
Well, this is why you guys are on the show to talk, too. You can pick up the things I forget to say.
Oh, man. I was like...
That was an epic moment.
I was like, yes, finally. Good for you.
And it was a perfect headshot, too, which was great.
No, it was a funk.
Now, what I want to know is he still carrying around that lucky rock from season 1? I would love for him to like made a quick line of like, see, I told you this was like the winning rock.
Still got it.
Like that. That would have been great because like he's a fucking teenager and he still has his little wrist rocket from when he was a kid. That's still his go-to weapon, which is great. But
hey, all reliable, baby.
Yeah. But it really only took Billy down for a moment, but it was a moment needed for them to kind of regroup. But I was surprised they all stuck around.
Yeah, I was like I would have just dipped.
Yeah. Because obviously the Mind Flayer is in full control at this point. They got their confirmation that Billy is the host. They should have gotten the fuck out of Dodge and bolted, but they stuck around. And you get Billy / the Mind Flayer breaking through the door, and him and 11 have a face-off where 11 basically puts all of her energy into just smashing him around. And then Billy fucking throat chokes 11 and lifts her up in the air. Like, that was intense shit. Mike comes to the rescue.
Even before that, like during the fight, like he pushed off the 135-pound 2 plates of the bar. Like I was like, oh, he's going like berserker mode, and it was insane.
Yeah, I was wondering how he would get out of that. That was wow.
Well, that's lightweight. I mean, quick. That's all Billy does all day long is he lifts weights at home.
It was kind of a situation where the host with like the mind flayer was like, "Oh yeah, this is a good body. Let's go. Like I'm going to tear shit up with this thing."
So I can actually stand a chance. I could do shit in that old kid's body.
Yeah, ain't no child.
But just
now I'm thinking about it too. So we knew in the second season that Will was feeling it, like knowing its presence, but the mind flayer chose Will the first time. I'm kind of curious. It was more of a situation where Will was adapted to the upside down that he was chosen. I'm kind of curious if it was kind of reversed. Is that the mind flayer adapted to the regular world, and that's how it was able to possess someone else, use the rats as a medium.
We've definitely seen drastic differences in the possessions between Will and Billy, and there's a lot of factors to consider that they don't really confirm what the factor is that makes it different. But because Will was chosen, I think I'm trying to think, because in season 1, Will was obviously in the upside down. He had the piece of the mind flayer inside of him when they get him out because they had the tube against him.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I wonder if it was almost like a tracking beacon at that point.
Yeah,
where the mind flayer was able to lock onto him in the real world, and that's why he kept following Will because he knew Will was infected at some point. Whereas Billy was kind of just probably just a happenstance random because he just happened to be driving by the steel mill.
Yeah.
And get hit. But yeah, it's an interesting question to point out. But definitely Billy is the more opportune person to have, I think, over Will.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, the fight basically ends with 11 smashing him through the brick wall.
Han, you missed the Mike hitting the overhead with a pipe.
I was about to get to that before, then we switched topics for a second.
Because holy shit, he took that one. He took that hit, then went through a brick wall, and then got up and ran away.
His life.
Yeah.
Because had 11 not stepped in, I feel like that would have been a Mike death blow at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an epic scene. It was kind of a makeup of the apology scene from earlier of, hey, I still love you moment that he didn't really actually get to say to 11.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his way of kind of stepping in, helping out. And 11 obviously reciprocates and saves his life in return. But then we get Billy running away, which I thought was odd. Because obviously I think he definitely could have taken the fight against 11. Because after that, 11 was basically wiped.
Build up your strength.
Yeah, I guess. But I feel like 11 was tapped out.
He also got hit with a freaking pipe too. He got hit with a pipe, and went through a brick wall. Like those are two things. I'm like, yeah, screw this. I'm going home.
Everyone was kind of in agreement. I'll get you later. We can do this at a different time.
Yeah.
The rest of the army is like, yo, hold your horses there.
Yeah, hold back.
But I love because Connor and I have talked about how much we love the music in the show, and I just love the little quick song we get as Billy's running away with the "We'll Meet Again" playing. Yeah. It was just so creepy of a song to have playing, but just it was a great kind of little comical song to throw in there too. Of all right, rematch is coming.
Yeah.
In case anybody's concerned or worried, like there's a rematch coming.
Tickets on sale.
Yeah. But then we get the final scene of Billy getting patched up and at the steel mill, and we get just a view of this massive army that the Mind Flayer has collected. And it just brings up the question again: is how did all these people get collected?
Well,
because Mrs. Driscoll one we think was by the rat. Could the rats have literally spread the plague across Hawkins?
I don't think that exactly.
So I'm trying to think of like how all of these people got picked up.
Yeah, maybe. It might be. Yeah, because Mrs. Driscoll is kind of the, I guess the indicator that there's other ways you can contract.
Yeah,
because we saw in episode 3 where how it transmits it from the main host or from the main body, which is like that kind of weird alien kind of face mask thing. And the it could be a situation where even the little pieces of rat can still do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll find out with that.
Yeah,
but also could be a situation too, because this is what, day 4 now, and which we don't know what the other 3 people were doing.
No, we don't.
At this, it's also a situation where like the more people you have, it's just going to grow exponentially.
Yeah,
like my mind's like
I saw it as like sleeper cells at this point because we know
yep,
Mr.
that's
Holloway's
exactly what I thought
out
too.
At large and Billy's out at large, but the rest of them are kind of just literally sleeping at this point.
Yeah, and then but the 2 thoughts that went through my head was A, how much of Hawkins is going to be taken over by this thing,
mm-hmm.
and B, who's going to die? Because like,
so do you have any predictions of?
Yeah, that's
I don't know. I feel like I was like, it feels like killing like all the people that we saw in the shot looked like to me that were not recognizable. From the rest of the army, that is, other than the 4 main ones. So maybe like it could be a situation where it's like, oh, these people all like those who get infected die, but we haven't seen anyone else get infected other than the Heather's family and Billy himself. So we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it also comes to like both questions come hand in hand with each other, because if a lot of Hawkins gets infected, then we don't like it could change the notion of like, oh, not going to kill the whole town, are they? Like, because that will be a wild thing to do as a directive kind of style. So
we'll just have to wait and see.
So, as I alluded to earlier, I think I know the name of this villain.
Okay.
I believe it's the Thessal Hydra.
And why do you say that? Because
there was a scene in episode 3 that kind of threw the flag up for me, because the fact that we was going back through flashbacks of them playing D&D together while he's in Castle Byers, and then you see them. They didn't talk about the Mind Flayer, but they talked about the Demogorgon one, and the other one they did mention was the Thessal Hydra. Okay. I was like, huh, interesting. And then when I saw that thing come out from when that thing came out to attack, attached to the Heather's parents, I was like, that's a good chance it might be it, because it kind of has like kind of weird protruding.
But aren't we supposed to assume that this is the Mind Flayer again at this point? Because Will said it's him.
Yes, but like also, I don't know. I feel like from how Stranger Things has done things so far, I definitely get Monster of the Week kind of vibes. So, once like they clearly said Thessal Hydra, and I was like, that was definitely a name drop. Like to me this is something where they didn't say that name just for shits and giggles.
Yeah,
because they could have said something like a beholder, and which is a creature is infamous with D&D that has its own thing, but like. I will here. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what the image of this thing looks like. So I have it pulled up for you all. Window, this thing, share. This is what it looks like here.
Ah.
So kind of the those kind of snake like looking things kind of remind me of that thing protruding out from it. I was like, it's not. It's again not. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but like again, they're kind of. They use analogies a lot. I was like, I have a feeling. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
So with that wraps up this episode. So any other final thoughts before we do ratings?
Nah, I loved it.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well then, Connor, let's hear your rating at this point, because I have a feeling it's gonna be in the high 9s.
9.3.
All right.
It was again great episode. I am loving this season to its full extent, and I'm loving all the plot points. It is keep on drumming away, please.
Told you.
You were right.
Me and Mitchell have been sitting here in agony for the first 2 seasons. Like season 2 is rough to get through because we're like
season 1 I was happy, but season 2 is a bit rough. It was rougher than I remembered.
Yeah,
I didn't remember it being that bad, but
we've been dying to get to season 3, and
yes,
again, this is literally just the first half of the season. There is still 4 more episodes to go.
Oh yeah. I mean, they commented to you at the earlier time. Is like, what the hell else is going to happen? There's 4 more episodes.
It is a jammed packed season of just nonstop fun.
Let's start the war.
With that, I'm gonna give it just a solid 9. Just because I know what Stranger Things is capable of pumping out. So I'm not gonna go much higher than that yet. But overall, I mean, you got great action, great mystery. Love the interactions between Dustin, Steve, and Robin, as always. Like, that's just the comical highlight of the show for me. And yeah, just overall, just love this season, love this episode.
Robin is slowly becoming a also top tier character for right now.
Oh yeah,
she's just awesome.
Wait. There's more to come, sir. Don't you worry.
All right, so now it's my turn to speak.
My Mitchell prediction, I think, will be I'm going to go an 8.88. And Connor, do you want to give your Mitchell rating from last episode, or did you already look?
No, me and Mitchell we talked about it last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we talked about during the Play Action podcast that we recorded today.
Okay.
How it's just an 8.
Y'all
got so angry with me about that.
Yes.
That's an 8.00.
No, don't defend him. Don't defend him.
Hey, you were the one that wanted it last time. You wanted it.
There's nothing wrong with that. I am going to say Mitchell gives it. I'll be a little conservative in this one. I'm going to say a 8.66.
Okay.
You know, one of my mottos in high school was,
I swear, if you say a flat 9, I'm going to punch you through the screen.
Do it.
Am I right?
Very, 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 very close.
Oh.
To a comical degree. I'm giving this a 9.01.
Oh, fuck you. I'm still happy I won this round, but still, fuck you.
9.01. Man, this is my favorite episode since the finale of season 1. Yep. I really enjoyed how this thing just got started from the jump and never let up. I don't know why the average for the I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now, and the average is stagnant at an 8.29, despite the fact that everyone's in the 9s right now.
it's averaging something that's it's averaging something that's not correct.
That's completely wrong.
It's averaging the ones. It's averaging the ones above it. I'll fix that in a second.
But also, it's going to be the first one, unless Nick comes out with like an 8.7 or something along those lines. It's going to be the first one that we've all had a 9 or higher on since, again, that season 1 finale. So we're getting finale type numbers right now. We're at a 9.103. That's really good. So we're chugging along just fine and getting finale level scores in episode 4. So this is we're on the right track.
Choo choo. Well, this has been fun. A little bit of a long episode in this one, but I think deservedly so.
Lots to talk about.
And I'm excited for the war. That's what I'm dubbing this as, is the war, because an army versus the small guerrilla pockets of what we want to call the faction of the party. I'm just going. Let's go with the faction for now. That's my term.
Do you want me to tell you the title of the finale episode?
No, never. It might be a cool team name now. Now I'm hyped up for it.
No, it's called Everyone Dies, and Everyone Dies. The end. Season 4 is just a blank screen. Love it.
So, so follow us on our socials on Instagram and Twitter. No, on anything else with that? I don't believe so.
Nope.
Well then, enjoy you and see you guys for next week for whatever episode. I don't know what the title of the next episode, Tommy.
5.
The Flayed is the next episode title.
The Flayed.
The
Chick-fil-A.
I'm intrigued because I already have thoughts. All right. Enjoy your day. See ya.